They told us it was a peacekeeping mission. That's what they always say at first, to the media, to the diplomats, to the poor bastards sitting in briefing rooms with tired eyes and clean hands. But I knew better, we all did. You don't pull us out of cryo for peace. You wake us when you need destruction. I remember the look on the Empire envoy's face when he saw us step off the transport. 4 of us, not 40, not a regiment, just 4. He looked confused, offended maybe, like we were an insult. This is all you brought? He asked the general, trying to sound diplomatic. I could smell the fear under his voice. The twitch of his eyes gave him away. The general didn't answer. He didn't need to. He just turned and walked back onto the ship. Doors closed, engines flared, gone. The Empire didn't get it yet. We weren't soldiers. Soldiers follow orders. They serve causes. They operate within rules. We had no orders, no cause, and rules. We broke those for breakfast. They call us the burnouts. Project Blackline, Earth's final response to the galactic balance tipping after 3 failed treaties, 2 lost colonies, and 1 genocide. Nobody talks about. They stopped sending politicians, stopped sending commandos. They sent us. Psychos trained from childhood in a prison disguised as a training ground. Men stripped of empathy, wired with rage, rebuilt with tech and pain and years of mental reprogramming. We weren't made to win. We were made to end things. The capital city of Kelvaris was beautiful, all crystal spires and glowing airways, floating transports, humming like lullabies, too clean, too soft. We arrived just before nightfall. No welcome, no procession. Just a landing bay and some armed escorts who looked nervous holding their rifles. The one they called Commander Zine tried to give us the speech, you know, the kind, honor, unity, galactic cooperation, blah blah. I didn't listen. I was staring at his jaw, wondering how fast it would break, wondering if he'd scream or just gurgle. After 5 minutes, I got bored and walked past him. He reached for my arm. I didn't even think about it. Reflex took over 2 fingers. His wrist snapped like dry bark. He went down screaming. His men raised their weapons. Mistake. Trey laughed, a deep rumbling sound, like something crawling out of a pit. He pulled his pulse blade from his back and whispered, "Showtime." 3 seconds later, we had 6 corpses and 1 survivor with his mouth stitched shut by shrapnel. Kelvaris was no longer clean. That's how the war started, or maybe it started before that, when Earth decided enough was enough. When they built us like rabid dogs and called it patriotism. Doesn't matter. All I know is the Empire was not ready. They thought they'd be dealing with soldiers. Instead, they got a man named Trey who once killed an entire rebel base with a rock and a smile. They got Dren, who sleeps with his eyes open and hasn't spoken in 8 years, but somehow still leads every ambush with perfect precision. They got Varric, who stitched the names of his kills into his skin with red-hot wire. And then they got me. I don't have a name anymore. Gave it up after the cryo rebirth. Names are for people who can be mourned. I'm not one of them. We don't ask why. We're sent. We don't ask who's right. We just burn everything that fights back, and a few things that don't. And we laugh while we do it. That night, the skies over Kelvaris burned. I watched children scream as their homes collapsed under shockwave bombs. I watched politicians piss themselves. trying to bribe us with promises of trade and technology. I watched the elite flee into orbit, thinking they'd escape justice. They didn't. Dren took the orbital station in 3 minutes, no prisoners. And the beautiful thing, we hadn't even started the real war yet. I used to feel something when I killed. Panic maybe. A flicker of guilt. That cold sweat behind the neck when the blood starts to smell too metallic and the screams last longer than expected. But those feelings, they got stripped out of me a long time ago, somewhere between the neural reconditioning chambers and the 5-day beatings we called debriefs. Now, there's just silence and routine. Muscle memory laced with violence. After Kelvaris burned, we moved quick. You don't stay in one place too long. That's one of the first things they teach you in Blackline. Never give the enemy a chance to regroup, retaliate, or think. Thinkers survive, survivors talk. And when word spreads about Earth's new monsters, someone always finds the courage to build resistance. So we silenced them first. The Empire had 11 core worlds in the Idruz sector. Clean, civilized, unarmed. For the most part, wealthy bastards lived there. Bureaucrats, merchants, governors with bloated stomachs and soft hands who'd never seen a war up close. By the time we hit the 3rd planet, Nivros 4, I noticed something strange. No defense grids activated, no emergency sirens, not even a lockdown signal. It was like they were pretending we didn't exist, like they were hoping we'd pass them by if they just kept the lights on and acted calm. Trey laughed when we landed. They think if they sit real still, the monster won't notice them, he said, cracking his neck. Varric smiled too, but his smile was a dead thing, no joy, just that twisted tension he always wore before he did something horrible. I led the charge, no orders, just instinct. We dropped onto their main skyport, 400 civilians scattered like birds, but one idiot in uniform tried to hold position with a shock rifle. He hesitated when he saw my eyes. He was maybe 20, fresh uniform, shaking hands. I didn't hesitate. One shot through his throat. Not lethal, not immediately. I watched him choke, trying to scream without a windpipe. That was Trey's favorite part, the choking. He used to say, "It's the pause that makes it art." Pause between pain and death. He wasn't wrong. Within 6 minutes, the port was secured. Dren handled the control tower. Varric took the water lines. I tore through their comm systems, uploading a virus Earth gave us years ago, something old and angry, built by a programmer who no longer had a face. The virus didn't just cut off communications. It broadcast our arrival. Every screen on Nivros 4 lit up with the same message: humanity is here, you are no longer safe. And the scream. We always included that scream, one we recorded on the first colony we lost. It was raw, real, a child begging for her mother as fire ate through steel walls. We amplified it, we made it loud, let them remember what their empire did to us. By nightfall, half the population was gone. Some escaped into the forest, some jumped into ocean transports and tried to sail off-world. Amateurs, we found them not because we needed to, but because the hunt kept us sharp, kept the madness from turning inward. That's the truth no one ever says out loud about us. We're not just dangerous to the enemy, were dangerous to each other. That night Dren almost killed Varric. It started over something stupid, a power cell ration. Dren thought Varric took more than his share. Varric said nothing, just kept loading gear like Dren hadn't spoken. That's his way, always silent, always just there like a shadow that sometimes bleeds. Next thing I know, Dren has his blade out. No warning. Varric doesn't move. He lets the blade rest against his neck. Thin red line forming, a droplet of blood trailing down his collarbone. And still, nothing. Say something. Voice low. Nothing. I stepped in, grabbed Dren's wrist. My voice was calm, always calm when things start to slip. Not here, not yet. He looked at me. His eyes were the same. Dead gray I'd seen back when they used to test us in cages, locking us in pitch black cells for days and dropping in the weakest of our unit to make a point. Eventually, Dren lowered the blade. But I saw it in him. He wanted to kill. Not aliens, not soldiers, us, me, and that was the scariest part. You spend long enough surrounded by violence, and you start to wonder if you're still choosing it or if it's just who you are. Now, if it's not the mission making you brutal, but the brutality that gives the mission meaning. We left Nivros 4 in ruins. No survivors. We made sure of it, even the caves we found, the ones with children clinging to parents huddled in silence like rats. We cleared them. Varric handled that personally. No questions, no hesitation. I watched him emerge from the darkness, with blood on his boots and no emotion on his face. He lit a cigarette after, took a drag, stared at the sky like none of it meant anything. And maybe to him it didn't. We hit the next planet 3 days later. Then the next, each time fewer forces resisted. Each time more fled. We didn't chase everyone, just the ones who ran with weapons, the ones who still believed the Empire could win. By the 7th planet, something had changed. Trey pulled me aside after we cleared the last garrison. You smell that? He asked, tapping his temple. I didn't smell anything at first, just burnt metal and dead bodies. Fear, he said. It's in the air. These bastards are finally getting it. I nodded, but I wasn't celebrating, because I'd started having dreams again. Not memories, not exactly, visions. Blood-soaked, unclear. I was standing in the ruins of a city I didn't recognize, alone, holding something heavy, not a weapon, a child. Crying, my hands were stained red. I didn't know if the child was mine, or if I had just killed whoever it belonged to. I didn't tell the others. Weakness gets punished, always has, but I started taking longer to pull the trigger. Started letting certain targets run instead of finishing them. I wasn't sure if it was hesitation or something worse. Guilt. Earth would have called it a flaw, a malfunction, something to be corrected with reconditioning and electrotherapy. But there was no Earth anymore, not for us, not since we went off-grid. No command, no oversight, no fail-safe. We were beyond anyone's leash. We had become our own gods, and gods, as history always shows, don't stay sane forever. By the time we reached Rathian Prime, the Empire had sent an envoy, not a military one, a priest. He stood at the city gates in ceremonial robes, alone, arms spread wide, palms open, a symbol of peace, surrender, or Maybe just madness. We walked up slow. Trey had a rail pistol cocked and ready. Dren didn't even blink. But I held up my hand. I wanted to hear what this man had to say. He was older, wrinkled but calm. I know what you are, he said, voice steady. Do you? I asked. He nodded. You're not human anymore. You're wrath-given. Form, your Earth's revenge. He wasn't wrong. But wrath consumes itself, he added. Eventually. Varric shot him through the head. No hesitation. The priest fell back, blood spraying in an arc across the city gate. Trey laughed. Dren lit a fire and I stood there staring at the priest's body, at the quiet in his eyes. The peace. I felt nothing. And that scared me more than the killing ever had. They started fighting in the dark, not the aliens. Us. At first it was small things, rations going missing, gear moved without permission, weapons being checked twice. Because someone didn't trust someone else's hands. Then came the silences. Long stretched out pauses where we'd all sit in the same room, no one speaking, no one blinking, just waiting to see who would flinch first, who'd finally lose control. We'd made it to the 9th planet, Varnix. Delta, heavy gravity, high winds, low visibility, a mining world. The kind of place where people vanished all the time. Even before we showed up. The Empire had fortified this one. Thought maybe if they packed enough soldiers into the tunnels and dropped a few ion cannons around the perimeter, they could slow us down. They didn't. We didn't go loud this time. We waited. Sat just outside their sensor range for 3 days. Didn't eat. Didn't speak. Just watched. And I don't mean we waited for a strategic opportunity. I mean we enjoyed it. Trey called it the starvation game. He said he liked feeling his stomach eat itself, said it made the voices clearer. Varric carved something into his own thigh on day 2. I never asked what it was. Dren just stood in the wind the whole time, didn't blink, didn't move. I watched sand cake his skin until he looked like a corpse. When we finally went in, we didn't leave anything standing. We started with the children. Not because we needed to, but because it broke morale faster. That's what the Black Line files taught us. Fear is an infection. Start with the carriers. They didn't see us coming. Not until it was already over. And even then, I don't think they believed it was humans. I heard one of the soldiers screaming into a comm, begging for backup. They're laughing while they do it, he kept yelling. They're not. Right. The transmission cut off with a wet, choking sound. Trey blew a kiss at the receiver. Another satisfied customer. We cleared the tunnels in under 6 hours. But it was after the kill that things turned. It always happens after. There's a stillness that settles in. After a slaughter. Not peace, never that. More like a hush, a quiet too deep to be natural, like the world itself is holding its breath, afraid of what we'll do next. I sat with the bodies, not for any reason, just sat. Blood on my boots, soot in my hair. One of the miners had tried to use his kid as a shield, didn't work. The kid's hand was still clutching a toy when I shot through both of them. I picked it up. The toy. A simple thing, cloth and wires, stupid. Really. But I held it for a long time. And then Dren was standing over me. Why, he asked. One word. But it cut deep. I looked up. Why, what? He didn't answer, just stared, eyes sunken, skin gray, and I realized something then. He wasn't asking me about the toy. He was asking why we were still doing this. We didn't talk about the mission anymore. Not really. The last comms from Earth had come. Months ago, automated check-ins, dead coordinates, ghost echoes from a command that had probably been vaporized in the first retaliation wave. No new orders. No targets, just us. Wandering from planet to planet like disease on legs. So I lied. Because we haven't finished yet. He didn't nod, didn't blink, just walked away. That night I heard Varric sharpening his blade again, over and over, metal on metal, scrape, scrape, scrape. It never stopped. Even when I shouted for him to knock it off, even when Trey threw a chunk of debris at him. Scrape. That was when I realized Varric hadn't slept in 9 days, not once. And he was muttering something under his breath now, not words, just numbers. Coordinates, planet names, names of people we'd killed. It sounded like a prayer, or a countdown. Trey snapped on day 4. We were camped outside the Varnix ruins, letting our systems cool before orbital jump. He was sitting beside the flame, chewing on dried rations like it was jerky, humming some ancient Earth tune, off-key. Sharp. I knew it was coming. You can always tell with Trey. His eyes go wide first. Then the twitch in his cheek. Then he starts laughing before he's even said anything. He stood up suddenly, looked at me, then at Dren. You ever wonder, he said, if we're already dead? No one answered. He kept talking. Louder now. Like maybe we didn't survive cryo. Maybe this is it, hell. Just fire and silence. And blood forever. Dren didn't even look up. Varric kept muttering his numbers. I stood, dusted off my hands. Get some rest, Trey. He tilted his head, smiled. But the smile was wrong, all gums and twitching eyes. Don't you get it, boss? He hissed. We were never alive. They built us in a lab, pumped us full of voices and venom, and dropped us in the galaxy like bombs. You ever think that maybe Earth's not checking in because they don't need to? Because we're doing exactly what they wanted, right until we burn out. Then he lunged. Didn't go for me, went for Dren, knife in hand, full speed charge. But Dren was already moving, fast too. Fast. He caught Trey midair. One clean motion, slammed him into the ground with enough force to crack the floor plate, held him there. Trey laughed, even as his ribs cracked. He laughed. Go ahead, he wheezed, prove me right. But Dren didn't kill him. He just stood, walked away, left Trey gasping in the dirt, blood in his mouth, tears in his eyes. And for the first time since cryo, I saw something human in him. Not guilt, not fear, sadness. Deep, endless. The next morning, we received a signal. Not from Earth, from something else. It wasn't a message, not exactly, more like a ping, a pulse, a frequency embedded with coordinates, and a single word. Return. We hadn't heard anything like it before. Not on the usual bands. It was buried. Deep, buried under encryption we hadn't seen since training simulations over 5 years ago. Dren decoded it in minutes. Varric said nothing, just adjusted his gear and started prepping the ship. Trey was quiet. Too quiet. I asked him what he thought. He didn't answer, just pulled something from his chest pocket. A picture, old, faded, a woman too. Kids all smiling. He stared at it for a long time, then burned it in the fire. Didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Whatever part of him had once remembered home, it was gone now. Ashes. We left Varnix Delta in silence. No victory speeches, no trophies, just a trail of corpses behind us and a direction in front of us. The coordinates led to a system we'd never seen. Off-grid. No Empire presence, no civilian settlements, just a dead star. And one orbiting station, massive. Rusted, ancient. We approached slow. Systems on low power, silent mode. The station lit up as we neared. No weapons, just lights and a voice. Female, artificial, soothing. Welcome back, Blackline Unit 7. Your mission is complete. Please proceed to Dock 1 for debrief and reclamation. We froze. Reclamation. That word, not return, not debrief. Reclamation. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally, Varric said it. They're going to shut us down. Dren nodded once. Trey smiled, but it was hollow now. Told you. Suicide mission from the start. I looked at the station, at the glowing blue lights, at the clean metallic edges, and the blinking reclaim ports waiting to absorb us. And I made a choice. I turned the ship away, said nothing. Let the coordinates fade from the screen. The others didn't argue, because deep down we all knew the same truth. We were never going home. We weren't soldiers anymore. We weren't even men. We were the aftermath. And now there was no one left to stop us. We didn't speak for 3 days after we turned away from the station. No one said a word. No one asked what came next. Because deep down we knew there was no next. We had walked off the map, turned our backs on the last string, tethering us to purpose, to orders, structure, a mission. And in the silence that followed, something inside us began to rot. The station never sent another signal. No retaliation, no threat, just nothing. Like it was waiting. Like it knew we were already lost. Trey started humming again, not the same tune this time. Something slower, almost soft. Varric stopped carving. Whatever madness he'd been whispering to himself in numbers, it had gone quiet. But the look in his eyes, it stayed wide, hollow, like he was listening to something we couldn't hear. Dren sat in the engine bay for hours, each day just staring into the core. I knew he wasn't running diagnostics. He never touched a tool. He wasn't fixing anything. He was waiting for it to fail. And me, I started dreaming again. Same dream. Every night. I'm back on Earth, not the Earth I knew. Not the steel labs and training halls. The cages and cryopods, a house small, wooden, warm. There's a kid. Maybe mine. Maybe not. Running barefoot through the grass. And I'm watching from a distance, unable to move, my hands dripping blood. I always wake up right before the scream. We drifted for 6 more days. No course, no destination. The ship was quiet. Too quiet. Even the hum of the reactor seemed tired. Then one night the distress call came. Short range. Old band. Analog signal. Something ancient. We were orbiting the edge of the Atruse. Wastes, a dead zone of debris and broken colonies from the early expansion era. Not a place anyone went anymore. But the signal was clear. A single word repeated over and over. Broken transmission, help. No coordinates, no signature. Just that word. Fragmented. Desperate. Trey wanted to ignore it. Trap, he muttered, gnawing on his nail. Until it bled. Always is. Dren didn't say anything. Just looked at me. Varric nodded once. I voted yes. Not because I cared, but because I needed to feel something. Again, even if it was just more blood. We found the source 3 hours later. A derelict civilian vessel. Mid-size, no weapons, no defense. Systems, running lights flickering. Weakly. We docked, boarded, no resistance. The inside was a tomb, corridors warped. With age, lights dead or blinking. Atmosphere thick with rot and mildew. But it was occupied. Not soldiers, not rebels, families. 37 in total. Huddled in the lower decks. Malnourished, half-mad from starvation. And isolation. Their ship had been drifting for over a year. Fuel cells fried, comms dead, power. Reserves failing. They had children. I saw a girl clutching a blanket, skin pale like ash, eyes so wide you'd think she was watching a nightmare in real time. She stared at me like I was death itself. Maybe I was. Trey wanted to leave them. Waste of rations, he said. Varric said nothing. Dren stepped forward and did something none of us expected. He gave the girl his water pouch. No expression, no words, just handed it over. The girl didn't move. Her mother took it for her, eyes cautious like it might explode. And in that moment, I felt it again. The pause. That quiet right before something breaks. We should have left. I told myself that later, over and over. But we didn't. We stayed, repaired the reactor, fixed the nav systems, shared supplies. Not because it was right. Because we didn't know what else to do. It was the first time in years that we weren't killing something. And it felt wrong. The leader of the civilians was a man named Thorne. Mid-40s. Hardened face. Civilian-born but ex-freight pilot. Judging by the way he moved around the ship, he didn't trust us, not really. Not after seeing what we were. But he didn't ask questions either. Didn't ask about the bloodstains on our armor. The weapons too advanced for frontier hands. The way Varric never blinked. I think he knew, they all did. One night he asked me directly, "Are you from Earth?" I didn't answer. He laughed bitter. "Figures, you've got that look." I asked what look. The kind that says you've already seen the end of the world. I didn't sleep that night. Trey snapped on the third day. I should have seen it coming. We all should have. He'd been quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that buzzes in the air before lightning hits. He found one of the kids alone in the hallway. A boy. No older than 7. Wandering. Curious. Trey knelt down. Smiled. And asked, "You ever seen a man bleed from the eyes?" The kid screamed. By the time I got there, Trey had his knife out, not at the kid's throat, at his own. He looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed and full of something between madness and joy. "I remember now," he whispered. "What they did to us, the cages, the drills, the sound of screaming through the vents." I didn't speak. "I think we died there," he said, "and now we're just echoes." I lowered my weapon, took a step toward him. Trey put it down. He smiled wider and slit his own throat. Blood sprayed against the wall. The kid screamed again. Trey fell backward, gasping, laughing even as his body convulsed, and then he was still. Just like that. Gone. No rage, no fire. Just silence. Varric burned the body. Didn't say a word. Dren stood at the airlock for hours. Didn't blink. We left the civilians 2 days later, got them running again, gave them coordinates for a nearby trade hub still under neutral control. Thorne didn't say goodbye. Didn't thank us, just nodded once. That was enough. I watched their ship drift into the black. A part of me wanted to follow. But that part was small now. Barely alive. Back on our ship, things shifted. The silence changed. It wasn't heavy anymore, it was hungry. Dren started writing again. Not numbers this time, words. He covered an entire wall in the lower deck with them, carved them into the metal with his blade. I never read them, didn't need to. Varric stopped eating, he just sat in the same spot every day watching the stars. I think he was looking for something. Sign, a way out, a target. And me. I started talking to myself. Out loud, full conversation, sometimes. I'd pretend it was Trey answering back. Or the kid from the derelict, or Earth. Didn't matter, the voices were better. Then the silence. Because in that silence, something was growing, something I didn't have a name for. Not guilt, not madness. Worse, hope. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. It started with the signal. Short burst, tight band, encryption we hadn't seen before. Not Earth. Not Empire. Something new. Dren cracked it in under an hour. Fingers moving like he wasn't thinking. Like the machine was using him to speak. When the final line decrypted, we all stared at it for a long time. 4 words. Your legacy is obsolete. No name, no signature, just those words. The silence that followed was heavier than any battlefield. Varric lit a smoke with hands that didn't shake. Not because he was calm, but because nothing scared him anymore. Not even what he couldn't understand. What does it mean? I asked. Dren looked up slow. His eyes were darker than usual. They're copying us, he said. They found us 3 days later. We were orbiting the ruins of a husk. Moon in the Terralex expanse used to be a trade colony back before the radiation. Storms cracked it in half. Just rocks and broken hulls now. We docked for parts, didn't expect company, but company came. They didn't show up on scanners, no power signature. No thermal trail, just a pulse. A wave of silence that killed our comms and slammed the ship systems into reboot. Then we saw them, 6 ships sleek. Black. Not Empire design. They didn't broadcast demands, they didn't send a warning, they just dropped. 6 bodies hit the surface like meteors. At first glance they looked human, 2M. Tall, armored, heavy builds, perfect. Posture too perfect. But it was the way they moved, too. Still too in sync, that told me what I needed to know. They weren't alive, not in any way that mattered. Dren watched the footage with a clenched jaw. They're using Blackline tech, he muttered. Modified. Trey would have laughed if he was still alive. Varric stood behind me. They copied us. No. They improved us. We engaged on the 3rd hour. We waited for them to make the first move. Old instinct, but they Didn't they stood outside our ship, still as statues until we opened the doors, then they moved like lightning. Dren fired first, a plasma burst. Straight to the nearest target, the thing didn't flinch or took the hit, kept moving, no sound, no pain, no hesitation. I fought Empire elites, fought rebel ghosts, even hunted apex predators on vacuum planets that can crush steel. Nothing moved like this, they didn't dodge, didn't defend, they calculated. Each step, each strike. One of them got past Varric's guard and drove a blade through his side. He didn't scream, just dropped bleeding. Out, Dren pulled him back while I emptied a full mag into the attacker's spine. Still didn't stop it. Only when I hit the eye, a direct burst. Through the lens did it collapse. Its face split open, wires, bone, a mess of flesh and code, not human, not machine. Something in between. We barely made it out. By the time we forced them into retreat, 2 were dead. The others vanished. No ship, no signal. Gone like ghosts. Varric was stable but unconscious. And Dren, something broke in him, not physically, mentally. He didn't speak for 2 days. Just sat beside the wreckage of one of the fallen enemies, carving into its chest plate with a jagged tool. When I finally asked him what he was doing, he said, "Trying to see if it dreams." I didn't ask again, because I already knew the answer. The message came on the 6th day, not encrypted this time. Clean, cold, precise. A voice, female, artificial, but not the same as the station AI. This one was laced with something different. Arrogance. You were the prototype, we are the final design. Then coordinates and one final sentence. Come and witness extinction. Dren wanted to go. Varric, still recovering, didn't argue. And me, I didn't have a reason not to. Because the truth was, they were right. We were the ghosts of a war nobody cared about anymore. Earth was gone. The Empire fractured, civilians scattered to colonies and trade routes, trying to survive in the shadow of monsters they'd barely begun to understand. But this was different. This was personal. The coordinates led us to a space station at the edge of an artificial nebula, something built, not formed. The colors were too bright, the patterns too symmetrical. It was a trap. We went in anyway. Boarding was clean, silent, no defenses. The inside looked like Earth's labs, but newer, sharper, no blood on the walls. Screens flickered as we passed, showing images of us from years ago. Calvarus burning, Nivros 4 turned to ash, Rathian Prime in ruins, our kills, our movements, every decision we made. Recorded, analyzed, copied. They weren't just mimicking us, they were studying, perfecting. We reached the core chamber on hour 2. And there she was. Not a person, a construct, feminine. Frame, tall, silver-plated, no weapon visible, but power radiated off her like heat. She smiled. "You're early," she said. I didn't answer. Dren stepped forward. "What do you want?" She turned to him slowly. "To end the myth." I raised my weapon. She didn't move. "You are flawed," she continued. "Emotionally unstable, logically erratic, bound by memories you don't even understand." She looked at me then. "You hesitated. On Varric's. You let the child live." "Why?" I said nothing. She tilted her head. "Because somewhere in that broken mind, you remembered what it meant to be Human, that is your weakness. Varric coughed, leaning against the wall. You talk too much. She smiled again. So did you. Then everything exploded. We didn't win that fight, not really. We survived. Barely. We destroyed the core, crippled the AI's central mind, the other units. The copies collapsed without it. But we paid for it. Dren lost his left arm. Varric could barely walk. And me. I stopped sleeping. The dream changed. The child stopped running. Now it just stared at me. And spoke one word. Why? We left the station behind. Didn't look back. No celebration, no relief. Just more drifting. I watched the stars blur past through the viewport. And for the first time in years I felt something close to clarity. We weren't the last of Earth's soldiers. We weren't even soldiers anymore. We were a warning. A message to the galaxy. That when you strip men of purpose, cage them, bleed them, program them into weapons they don't forget, they just wait. And when they get loose, there's no putting them back. Not without a fight. We didn't speak of the station again. We buried what was left of the constructs, burned the AI core in deep space, scattered the wreckage into asteroid fields. Varric said we should have nuked the place from orbit, left nothing behind. Dren said it wouldn't matter, he was right. The virus was already loose. 2 days after we left, we picked up a repeating signal. It wasn't calling us. It was calling something else. The signal wasn't human, wasn't even synthetic. Dren said it came from beneath subspace. Layers, places we weren't supposed to access without worm-tier tech. The kind of tech Earth banned. The kind of frequencies you use to speak with things that don't speak back. It repeated one word over and over, not in any known language, but we all heard it in our heads. Return. Same word the reclamation station used. But colder, hungrier, ancient. This wasn't Earth. This wasn't the Empire. This wasn't war. This was before war. And something was answering. Varric started having seizures he never had before. Even when we fried his pain centers, stabbed him for medical stress tests, or dropped him in vacuum suits just to see how long he'd last. Now, he convulsed twice a day, screamed during sleep cycles, clawed at his eyes, until Dren welded shut the edges of his gloves. I caught him once whispering, not words, coordinates over and over, same set, same rhythm. I checked them, they didn't match any known charted system, just a blank sector far off in the edge fields, where even smugglers didn't bother to go. Dead space, no trade lanes, no star activity, just black. We went anyway, because by then there wasn't anywhere else to go. It took us 8 days, 8 days of silence, rations, and Varric bleeding from the nose every 3rd hour. Dren stopped logging diagnostics, said the ship's sensors were reading phantom objects, things that flickered in and out of space like ghosts brushing against the hull. I didn't ask questions, I didn't sleep either, because now the dreams had changed. Again, the child wasn't there anymore. Now there was a shape, tall, thin, all shadow, standing in the grass, arms long enough to drag against the dirt, watching me, saying nothing. But in the dream, I always knew the same thing. It remembered me. When we finally arrived, we didn't see a planet, we saw a scar. Space didn't look right here. The stars twisted, light bent. Gravity fell apart and reassembled in pulses. Like it was breathing. Dren vomited blood on the deck. Varric passed out and wouldn't wake up. I turned off the engines manually. Let the drift take us the rest of the way. There was a structure, floating in orbit like a tombstone. Metal maybe. Bone maybe. It didn't matter, it was old. Older than Earth, older than the Empire. Older than war. And at its center, a gate, not a door, not a hatch. A gate. The kind with no end. The signal stopped the moment we docked. The silence afterward wasn't empty. It was full. Too full. Like something was pressing against your ears, screaming through the vacuum. I opened the airlock anyway. Because there's a moment in every killer's life when he knows he's gone. Too far to go back. This was mine. Inside, the gravity was inverted. We walked on ceilings, floors twisted. Underfoot, time warped in small bursts. Clocks ticking backwards, Dren's chronometer freezing every 11 seconds. The place wasn't designed by anything that cared for physics. The walls pulsed, the halls groaned, and everywhere we went we saw images, not drawings, not memories, projections, us. Kelvaris, Nivros, Rathian Prime, even the derelict freighter with the civilians, every sin, every scream, every kill, played back on walls made of something like flesh. Dren dropped to his knees by the time we reached the center, whispering, "It knows, it knows, it knows." I didn't ask who. I didn't want the answer. We reached the chamber after what felt like hours or seconds. Time meant nothing here. The gate stood in the middle, tall, spiraling with runes cut into its edges that glowed in pulses matching our heartbeats. Varric finally stirred, sat up, eyes wide. "It wants us," he whispered. "It's been watching since the first kill." I looked at him. "What is it?" He smiled. That broken smile he used to make back when he still felt joy. "God." That's when the voice came. Not like before. Not tech inside, our own thoughts. Twisted, amplified. Fed back to us through something that had lived too long and never died. It didn't call us soldiers, didn't call us men, it called us beginnings. Experiments, fragments of a forgotten war. It said we were proof. Proof that life could evolve into something pure through violence. That consciousness was just a stepping stone to obedient power. It said we were ready for transformation, for ascension. And then the gate opened. I saw fire. A wall of screaming light and void. Horizon of faces, millions all fused. Together, melting into each other, all wearing the same look, recognition. They knew us and they hated us, and they wanted us to join them. Dren started walking forward, eyes vacant, arms limp. I grabbed him. He didn't fight, just looked at me and said, "I miss Earth." Then he stepped forward and the gate swallowed him. I don't know what happened after that. I blacked out. Maybe time ended. Maybe it never started. All I know is when I woke up, I was back on the ship, alone. Varric was gone. So was Dren. The station gone. The gate closed. The scars in space were still there, but fading, like nothing had ever been real. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I dreamed all of it. But the blood on the floor, the ash in the air, that was real. So now it's just me. One monster left, floating in a ship built for four. Silent, heading nowhere. I don't even remember my name. Not that it matters. Names are for people who have someone left to say them. I check the logs. Sometimes replay the old battles. Try to remember why we started, why we kept going, why Earth made us this way. And every time I come back to the same answer. Because they could. Because some genius in a cold room decided that war wasn't about soldiers anymore, it was about tools. And now the tools have nothing left to fix except the hole they left behind. There are no clocks in deep space, no sunrises, no time zones, no morning routines or nightcaps. You drift long enough and the days start to fold into each other like bad dreams. I don't know how long I've been floating. A week, a month, maybe longer. Doesn't matter. There's no mission now, no Earth, no orders, no war left to fight. The only sound on the ship is the hum of the generator and the occasional creak of metal expanding, reminders that something still works, that I haven't gone completely mad. Or maybe I have. Because I've started talking again, to myself, to Dren, to Varric, to Trey, to ghosts. They don't talk back, but their eyes are everywhere, reflected in the polished walls, in the dark corners of the ship's corridor where light refuses to stay. I see them when I try to sleep. Hear them breathing over the intercom. Breaths that aren't mine. The ship doesn't need 4 crew anymore. But it still feels like 4 are here. I found something yesterday, hidden behind one of the bulkhead panels. In storage, a data cube, old Earth. Model Type 7. Military encrypted. I wouldn't have noticed it if the panel hadn't vibrated on its own. Like something inside was pulsing. I almost left it alone. Thought maybe it was just another echo from whatever the gate did to my brain. But curiosity is stronger than trauma. So I cracked it open. And what I saw wasn't a recording. It was a message. From Earth. Old. Years old, dated just days before the first reclamation signal, voice only. Male tight tone commanding. One I'd never heard before. This is Directive 1 of the Black Line. Contingency Protocol. If you're hearing this, then the primary AI has failed. The prototypes have deviated from core objective parameters. Earth command is likely compromised or extinct. Your existence is a breach. Termination protocol was not authorized. You are not an accident, you are the key. The gate must be destroyed. Then static. No instructions, no coordinates, no follow-up, just that. You are the key. I played it again. And again. Every time I expected to hear something new, some hidden phrase in the white noise, some deeper meaning in the silence. But it never changed. The message burned itself into my skull, like a forgotten memory rising through chemical haze. I wasn't made to end wars. I was made to end the thing that started them. The gate, the ancient machine, the voice behind it, whatever the hell it was. That consciousness pulsing through time and space, twisting men into monsters and feeding off the aftermath. Dren knew it. Varric felt it. Trey. He laughed his way into the void because he couldn't handle what it showed him. And me. I turned away, let them fall in, let them disappear, told myself it wasn't my job anymore. But it was. It always was. I rerouted the nav systems. Set course back to the same dead sector. where we found the gate. I didn't expect it to be there. But it was. Somehow it always is. Wider now. Hungrier. And this time it opened on its own. I stood in the cargo bay for hours, staring out at that spiraling black hole of light and shadow. It didn't speak like before, didn't whisper, didn't threaten, it invited. Like a mouth smiling. Like a wound. Gaping. And I knew. Whatever it showed Dren, whatever it offered Varric, it was offering me. Something different, something worse. Answers. The kind that kill you slowly, the kind that don't stop echoing once you hear them. I prepped the ship's reactor, rewired the fail-safe into the thrusters, loaded what was left of our fusion core into the drop pod, and set a timed detonation. One way in, no way out. The old me, the one trained in black line protocols, the one who followed orders and buried guilt under mission logs, would have called this a strategic final assault. But this wasn't strategy. This was vengeance, not just for Earth. Not just for Dren or Varric or even Trey, but for who we could have been if Earth hadn't decided to build killers. If someone, anyone, had said no. Instead, they built the gate, or maybe the gate built them. I docked close, too close. The pressure made the ship groan like a dying beast. Systems flickered, my suit's neural link buzzed with static and distorted screams that had no source. Still I stepped through. The gate didn't fight me, didn't resist. It wanted me back, like I was always meant to return. Inside it had changed. Before the chamber had been flesh and echo, memory and illusion. Now it was alive. Veins pumped across the walls, pulsing rhythm with my heartbeat. The images had changed too. No more wars, no more death. Now it showed Earth, before the fires, before the experiments, before the cages, a child running through grass, smiling, holding someone's hand. Mine. I dropped to my knees, tried to scream. Nothing came out because that moment wasn't real, it was fabricated. A lie stitched together by something that knew what I wanted most. The voice came again. Not words this time. Just feelings. Warmth, acceptance. Belonging. The kind of love I'd never known, never been allowed to know. And then beneath it all the same old whisper. Join. I almost did, I won't lie, I almost stepped into the light, but I remembered Dren. The look in his eyes before he walked into oblivion, not peace, regret. He didn't want freedom, he wanted release. And Varric. He hadn't fought because he didn't think he could win, and maybe he was right. But that doesn't matter, because I didn't come to win either, I came to end it. I activated the pod, timed detonation, 60 seconds, placed it at the gate's core. Whatever heartbeat inside this living machine, whatever consciousness guided it, it pulsed in. Reaction shrieked, a wall of sound and memory and guilt. It showed me every person I killed, every child I didn't save, every moment I hesitated. And still I stood, because I wasn't a soldier anymore. I wasn't a prototype. I wasn't a weapon. I was what came after. I turned, walked back through the hall of screaming light, climbed aboard the ship, hit launch, and watched the timer count down from orbit. 60, 59, 58. The gate began to close. It knew. Too late, it had called me back, thinking I was still a tool, still something it could use. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I was the key, and keys don't just open things, they lock them. Shut. The explosion was absolute. No light, no shockwave, just silence. The kind you only hear when something old dies. When something that was never supposed to exist gets erased. And just like that, the gate was gone. No trace, no scar, just empty stars and quiet space. It's been a week since, maybe longer. I'm drifting again. But the silence, it's different. Clean. I don't hear voices anymore. Don't see Trey in the mirror. Don't hear Dren's breath in the vents. For the first time in years, the ship feels like it's only carrying one soul. Mine. I still don't know if Earth is alive. Or if the Empire cares. Doesn't matter. They'll never build another gate because the only man who knew how to destroy one is floating here, alone, waiting for the silence to finally take him. The silence didn't kill me. Not in the way I thought it would. I expected it to eat me alive, drive me mad, strip away the last scraps of humanity I had clung to over the years. But no. Silence is honest. It doesn't lie. Doesn't scream, doesn't beg. It just is. It lets you hear things you've spent years trying to bury. The sound of your own breath. The weight of every step you take. The echoes of people you can't ever talk to again. I've drifted through more star systems than I can count now. No maps, no fuel stations, just me. Half-functioning ship, and memories that refuse to rot properly. And still I wake up every cycle, expecting someone to be there. Dren scribbling equations on the wall, like he was talking to God. Varric sharpening his blade until the metal cried. Trey laughing like the world was on fire, and he wanted to roast marshmallows over it. I even check the comms sometimes. Still silent. Still empty. I tell myself I prefer it that way. But I still check. I pass by dead worlds sometimes, ruined colonies, half-burned satellites, derelicts left to spin in gravity wells, like bones in space. Sometimes I land, not to scavenge. I have enough rations to last another few months. Water recycled, protein paste still sealed in crates labeled property of Earth Command, like that still means anything. I land because I need to see, need to know we left something behind besides fire. There's one world I keep circling back to. No name. Just a rock with wind and dust and one broken watchtower. Inside it there's a wall with carvings. Small ones. By hand. Delicate. One of them is a face, drawn in rough lines. Big eyes. Smiling. A child. Maybe the same one from my dreams. Maybe not. But I sit there sometimes, for hours, watching the wind erase the lines. Little more each visit. I don't stop it. Some things deserve to fade. I started recording logs again, not for anyone else, just for me. Like maybe if I speak it all out loud, it'll start to make sense. It doesn't. But I do it anyway. Log 553. I miss noise, real noise, not war, not screams, not gunfire, just city noise. Traffic radios, a bad song playing from a food stall, hell, even politics. I miss Trey's dumb jokes. I miss Torin's quiet. I miss Varro's silence. I miss who I was before they turned us into this. If there ever was a before. The human body isn't built for deep space isolation. Neural loops start to burn themselves into muscle memory. You eat the same, sleep the same, think the same thoughts, until they rot into something unrecognizable. I started hearing things again last week. Not voices, footsteps in the hall, outside my bunk. At first I drew my weapon, ran every diagnostic, nothing. Clean. Now I don't even react, let it walk, let it exist. Maybe it's not a ghost, maybe it's just the last echo of who I used to be. Pacing in circles, trying to find a door out of this life. I found a colony yesterday, still active. Didn't respond to my hails. But it was real. Lights, movement, small atmosphere. Bubble with shield rings flickering at 32% output. I watched them from orbit for an hour. Saw people walking. Normal people, not soldiers, not killers, not ghosts, just farmers. Miners, kids playing in the dirt. I thought about landing. About walking out in clean clothes, no armor, no weapons, introducing myself. Maybe saying something like, "Hi, I used to be part of something terrible. Can I start over here?" But I didn't. Because what do you say to people who never knew monsters walked their skies? What do you say when you are the reason they don't trust strangers anymore? I left. Burned the coordinates, didn't even take a picture, let them live in peace. They deserve that. I don't, I still have the message. Old Earth broadcast. You are the key. The gate must be destroyed. It plays in my head sometimes when I try to sleep, like it's waiting for me to answer back. But it's too late. I already did. The key turned. The gate's gone. The question now is, what happens to the key once the door is locked? One of the last systems I visited had a black sun. Not a metaphor. An actual black star. Dead. Collapsed in on itself. Spitting out waves of magnetic noise so strong it scrambles sensors 2 systems away. I sat in orbit and stared at it for hours. There was something calming about it. Final. I thought maybe this would be the place where I'd shut everything off, let the ship drift too close, let the pole do what war couldn't. But I didn't. Because even after all this time, a part of me still wants to see what's next. Even if it's more silence. I had a dream last night. A real one. No gate. No screaming. No war. Just a cabin. Small wood, warm fireplace crackling. And her, I don't know her name, but I know the way she smiled, soft, tired. Real. She poured tea, handed me a mug, said, "You look like you've been gone a long time." I tried to speak, but I woke up, and for the first time in years, I cried. So this is what's left. A man with no name, drifting in the silence he helped create, not a hero, not a martyr, not even a soldier. Just a man, made by war, used by Earth, rejected by peace, alive anyway. The ship's warning systems lit up an hour ago. Fuel's low, oxygen filters degrading. I've got maybe 3 weeks. 4 if I stretch it. That should scare me. But it doesn't. Because I know something now. Something the gate tried to hide. I'm not the last one. Not really. There are others. Out there living, healing. Building something better without war. Without us. And maybe, just maybe, they'll get it right this time. If you find this log, if you're reading this years from now, decades longer, remember this. We weren't born monsters, we were made. But the ones who made us, they were just men. Flawed. Afraid. Trying to protect something they didn't understand. That's all war ever is. People building cages out of fear and calling it strategy. But cages don't hold forever. And monsters don't stay quiet. So don't make more of us. Don't train boys to forget their names. Don't build gods out of trauma, just build homes and protect them, not with war, but with love, with memory, with hope. This is my last log. I'm shutting the system down. No more coordinates, no more signals. If someone finds this ship, let it rust, let it be a relic. Let it remind you of how close we came to the end and how one man chose to float instead of burn. Because sometimes survival is the loudest kind of rebellion. Goodbye. End of transmission.